Because he has a tracker on us.
Okay, recording started.
Okay. All right. Good morning, everybody. We are up to the second line at the top of Yud Ches Amud Aleph. The Kevon Sheba David. I'm not muted. I am not muted. Nothing. Okay. So we are up to the second line on Yud Ches Amud Aleph. Kevon Sheba David, talking about the order of brachos in Shemona Esrei. And after Es Tzemach David, which was the last one discussed, the Gemara comes and says, "V'kevon sheba David basa tefillah." After David HaMelech comes tefillah. Oh, I can hear myself. After David HaMelech, after David HaMelech comes tefillah, meaning the bracha of Shomea tefillah. How do we know? Shneimar pasuk says, "V'haviyos mahar kachi v'simachtim b'tefillah." It was a pasuk before a song that the Navi says that you'll come to Al Har Kachi, right? David HaMelech representing Mashiach. And you will rejoice in my house of Tefillah. So we see Tefillah comes after David HaMelech. Then became a Shabbos Tefillah, Bas Avoda. Then once we have Tefillah, we have Avoda. The very next continuation of that pasuk after talking about Tefillah goes ahead and talks about Korbanos Avoda. And thus, that is after Tefillah. Kevan Shabbos Avoda, Basa Toda. And then after Avoda comes the bracha of Hoda, of Modim, Shneimar Zoveach Toda Yechabinani. That the one who offers a Korban Toda is honoring me. So the Toda, right, the Korban Hoda here, is a form of Korban. Right, it therefore comes right after the avoda. So what do they see to institute the recitation of Birchas Kohanim after the bracha of Hoda'ah? Dichsiv, pasuk says in Vayikra Vayisa Aaron es Yadav Ela'am Vayivachem. Aaron lifted his hands and blessed the nation. Vayired me'asos hachatzos ve'olav hashlamim, and came down from doing a chatas ola and shlamim. Shlamim, of course, includes the Toda. So it says, asks the Gemara, Ema Kodem Avoda. So it says that Aaron gave the bracha, and then it says the Chatas Ola and Shlamim. So maybe we should say that the Birchas Kohanim should come before the Avoda. So Lo Sakadaita Tuchsiv Vayired Me'asos Achatas V'Gomer Miksiv La'asos Me'asos Ksiv. Right? So no, if you read the pasuk, it's very clear. It says Aaron lifted his hands and then came down from performing the chatas, meaning he had already performed the chatas, not to do it. So he had already done it, meaning he did the chatas ola shlamim prior to giving the bracha, and thus the bracha is after the avoda. The lemra achar avoda. So then, okay, that's very nice. Now we see it's after the avoda, but still we should have done it then after the avoda before toda. So no, because we as a pasuk we quoted earlier, Zoveach Toda. So now says the Gemara, my cause is disamachta high, samucha high. Meaning, okay, so now you're proving. So now we have conflicting sukkim. One which indicates the bracha of Kohanim should be after avoda, and one which seems to say that the Toda should be after the avoda. So who's to say which pasuk we should follow? So mistaber avoda v'hoda chadam milsi. So no, because really avoda and hoda are one thing, right? That the Toda was one of the korbanos. So really the avoda and hoda are all one, and thus we have the avoda, hoda, and afterwards birchas kohanim. Good. So umaro lomar sim shalom achar birchas kohanim. So then, okay, so now we're up through birchas kohanim. So how do we know that we say? What do they see to institute sim shalom after Birchas Kohanim? Dichsiv v'samu es shemi al b'nei Yisrael v'nei Avarchem. Pasuk says that they put my name on b'nei Yisrael. He gave the Birchas Kohanim v'nei Avarchem, and I will give them the bracha. So first was samu es shemi al b'nei Yisrael of Birchas Kohanim, and afterwards the bracha of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Bracha the HaKadosh Baruch Hu shalom. What is the bracha of HaKadosh Baruch Hu? That is shalom. Shneimar Shem yivarech esamav shalom. Right, that Hashem should bless His people with peace. So we see that shalom is the bracha of Hashem, and thus it's after the Birchas Kohanim. The Esrim Zekenim, Umeim Kam Neviim, take no tefillah ala seder. Shimon Hapikuli mahis there. So now that we see this whole order put together based off the Anshe Knesset Agadola, 120 zakadim, of who, amidst whom were a number of neviim. So then, what was Shimon Hapikuli? What did he put together? What did he organize? Says the Gemara, that really what happened was the Anshe Knesset Agadola had initially put together the Shemona Esrei, and then apparently we lost track of it. We lost our Sidurim. We didn't know what the tefillah was anymore. And comes Shimon Hapikuli and reorganized the Shemona Esrei. Okay, so that concludes the order of the brachos of Shemona Esrei. Mikan ve'ela. Also, from here on, besides for these 18 or 19 brachos, it is forbidden to add shevach, to add additional brachos to the shevach of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So, what is the pasuk that and from Tehillim that says, "Who is the one who speaks of the greatness of the heroics of God? Is the one who recites all of his praise. Who could possibly be able to speak and summarize and recite all of the Gvuras Hashem? It must be, it's some referring to someone who is able to make heard all of his praise. Meaning to say, only Chazal, we are unable to captivate that, to limit the praise of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and therefore we only have the right to say the brachos that are instituted in the Shemona Esrei and not add anything beyond that. Amar Rav Bar Chana, Amar Yochanan, Hamisaper, the Shivcho Shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Yosem Yidai Nekaro in Olam. Says Rav Bar Chana Yochanan that one who speaks of the Shevach of HaKadosh Baruch Hu too much is Nekar min Olam. Shneimar Yisupar Lo Ki Adaber Im Amar Ish Ki Yivla. That one it will get swallowed up if one attempts to add this on their own. Darash Yehuda, Ish Kfar Giborayev, Amrila Ish Kfar Gibor Chayev. Okay, so it says, he makes his drasha. My dichsiv lecha dumya tehila. What is the pasuk in Tehillim that says that to you silence is praise? What does that pasuk mean? Sama dekula mashtuka. Right, the greatest praise is silence. Ki asa Rav Dimi Amar. He says, I come from the Holy Land, and there we say one word is worth a sela, and two words and silence is worth two. Right? So in other words, silence is more valuable than speaking. Of course, we find that in Pirkei Avos as well. That there's nothing better than quiet. So there's a big emphasis on silence in Chazal. Okay, continues the Gemara now with another phrase of the Mishnah. Kara al peh lo yatsa, that if we read the Megillah, that the halacha in the Mishnah was that if one is not allowed to recite the Megillah bal peh, and if they do, they are not yotzei. So says the Gemara min Olam. How do we know that? Amarava asya zechira zechira. It's Xera Shava zechira zechira. Ksiv hacha v'ayamim v'aylam yiskar. And it says in the Megillah itself that these days will be remembered. Uksiv hasam by Amalek in Parashas B'Shalach kisov zos zikaron the sefer. Write this as a commemoration in a sefer. Malaholim b'sefer afkan b'sefer. Just like over there, it's referring to something written. So too here, this zechira by Esther also must be something written. So who says, okay, so now that I understand why it has to be written, but who says that means I need to recite it out loud? Maybe it just means look at it. Maybe it means read it. So lo salkadaita the zachor, that in Parashas Kiseitze it says zachor, right? Remember what Amalek did to you. Yachol believe, so maybe I'll think that means to remember it in your heart. But at the end it says again, don't remember. So why does it say remember? Don't forget, excuse me. Please definitely remember. Thank you. Right? Why does it say remember, don't forget? Right? So lo tishkach shechchas halev, Amar, we already said shechchas halev, hence the zachor. Amani mekayim zachor. So why does it say zachor also? The pet. Right? So the lo tishkach is don't forget in your heart, and the zachor is verbalize it. So now we see that Amalek has to be verbalized, to be written in the Sefer, and has to be read out loud. So too, the Zachor by Esther also has to be written in the Sefer and verbalized. Okay. Kara Targum Lo Yatza says the Mishnah, if one reads the Megillah in a translation, or if one reads it B'chol Lashon in any other language, they're not Yotzei. Heichi Domi, what's the case? Wonders the Gemara. Ilema Tsiva Ikra V'Karla Targum. If you say it's talking about a case where it's actually written in Hebrew and you just translate it as you go, and you're reading from the Hebrew document, but you recited it in English. So Hainu Al Pet. So that's called what? No. Meaning if you have Hebrew, exactly, right? Exactly. You're translating in your head, but you're just saying it in English, right? I know it's impressive, right?
Why are you looking at it?
Oh, because if you're in the Sefer, so it says the Gemara. That's not what it says. It says Hainu Al Pet, right? That's called Balpet, right? You're not reading it. You're exactly like Dr. Yahav said, right? You're essentially what that's doing is just saying it by heart. No, what it was referring to is when it's written in another language and you are reading it in that language, you are not Yotze. Okay. However, the Mishnah continues and says, but you could read it in another language if that's the primary language the other person speaks. So now says the Gemara, what do you mean? We just got saying if you say the Megillah, if you read the Megillah in any language, you're not Yotze. So that seems to be a contradiction. Rabu Shmuel, no, you're right. Most languages, you're absolutely right. If you read it in another language, you're not Yotze. However, there's something very unique, something very significant about the Lashon, the language of Greek. Apparently, there's a special chashivas in Greek. So it says Rabu Shmuel. They say no. If it's in Greek, then you would be Yotze. Everything else you wouldn't. Now continues the Gemara. Hechidami. What exactly is the case? If you tell me it's talking about where it's written in Hebrew and you're just reading it in Greek, just like we said before, that's just reading it by heart, which you're not Yotze. No, says Rav Lazar that it is referring to a case where it's written in Greek. So it's written in Greek and you recite it in Greek. Okay, so fine. So now we're going to pause from that discussion for a minute and quote a tangential statement also from the Rav Lazar, totally unrelated to our discussion. How do we know? Where do we know that God called Yaakov Kel? Shenamar Vayikra Lo Kel Elokei Yisrael. Pasuk says that he called him God Elokei Yisrael. Right, so the Isakadaita, the Mizbeach Tarle Yaakov Kel, and this is right outside Shechem, when Yaakov makes a Mizbeach. So if you think that what it means is Yaakov is calling the Mizbeach Kel, it says the Gemara should have said Vayikra Lo Yaakov Miboile. But it should have specified it. It should have said Yaakov called the Mizbeach Kel. Ela Vayikra Lo Le Yaakov Kel. Rather, the way to read it must be Vayikra Lo Le Yaakov Kel. It must be that he called Yaakov Kel, Umi Kira'o Kel, and who called him Kel? Elokei Yisrael. Must have been God of Israel. Kadosh Baruch Hu called Yaakov Kel. Okay, now back to our discussion after that brief commercial break. Meisvei says, as the Gemara brings a question on the previous maskana that it was referring to Greek. Says the Gemara, Kara giftis ivris ilmis midis ivanis lo yatsa. If you read it in any of these languages, gift that we just said, right, then you're not yotze, including ivanis. So hello damya, no, so says the Gemara, it's not similar. Hello damya alalah, giftis legiftim, ivris leivrim, ilmis leilmim, ivanis leivanim yatsa. So no. What it means is, if you read it in those languages to those people who just speak that language, then they're Yotze. So hold on. Now you're telling me, right? Okay, that's referring to any language. Any language, if that's the person's native language, then he's Yotze. So then why were Rav Shmuel, why did they say that our Mishnah, right, that says that you could read it in to any foreigner in their language, why did they say that's only talking about Yavonis? It seemingly is every language. So really, yes, you're right. It is every language. It's not like Rabbi Shmuel was saying. It is every language. When Rabbi Shmuel, when their statement wasn't specifically about our Mishnah, but that was in general. Rabbi Shmuel, the Amri Tarvayu Laz Yavani L'chol Kasher, right? Everything else, all the other languages, you can only read it in English to an American, someone who understands English. You can only read it in French to someone whose native language is French. But Greek, as long as it's written in Greek and read in Greek, then even if you don't understand Greek, it's still kosher. Oh, okay, so that's an excellent question. Apparently, Chazal gave specific significance to the Lashon of Greek. I don't know. I'm not doing Daf Yomi. I don't know. I'm not doing Daf Yomi. Sorry, did I say that out loud? The Haktani Yavan. Okay, Haktani Yavanis Yavanim and L'Kuli Amalo. Right. So that indicates that what Yavanis. Sorry, it says Yavanis Yavan. It indicates Yavanis to Yavanim. Right. That's meaning that the brush we just quoted said Yavanis to Yavanim. So what do you mean Rabbi Shmuel are saying to anyone? No, it just said Yavanis to Yavanim. So Inu the Amr Gamliel. You're right. What we just said did say Yavanis to Yavanim, but that was the Chacham. However, there is a dissenting opinion of Rabbi Shimon Gamliel who actually argues and says no, that's not. That says differently. That says Yavanis that Greek could be to anyone. That's not Rabbi Shimon Gamliel Omer. That even Sifrei Torah could only be written in Greek also. So meaning to say what? That even non-Yavanim, even people who don't necessarily speak Greek, that would also be significant. Rabbi Shmuel was arguing on them. And when Rabbi Shmuel say that Greek is unique, yeah, it's referring to Greek to everyone, even if they don't understand Greek. And they are going like Rabbi Shimon Gamliel. But now says the Gemara, why they have to say this whole statement about the Laz Yavani? Say halach is Rabbi Shimon Gamliel, indicate that they're agreeing with Rabbi Shimon Gamliel and arguing with the comment. The Amri halach Rabbi Shimon Gamliel. Havamina hani mili shar svarim about Megillah d'chsiv bo kichsavam imolo k'mash malah. No, because if it only said halach Rabbi Shimon Gamliel, then that would have implied that maybe I would have thought that's referring to all other svarim Rabbi Shimon Gamliel says could be written, all other sifrei Tanakh that could be written in Greek. However, maybe I would have thought there would have been an exception by Megillah because the pasuk in Megillah says tichsavam in the way they were written. So maybe I would have thought that was coming to exclude Greek. Kamash Malon, no, teach Rabbi Shmuel that includes even Greek, and that is the halakha according to them. Okay, good. Bottom line is the Megillah could be written in and read in any language, ideally in Lashon HaKodesh, but as long as you understand it, it could be read in any language. Okay, continues the Gemara. So now the opposite is true as well, right? That even if you don't understand Hebrew, if you hear it in Hebrew, you are Yotze.
So from this, the meaning is not just Shmiya, it's under the also understand. If you read it in every language,
you need to understand. Good. So that's the next question of the Gemara, right? What do you mean? So now you're Yigal saying correctly. Based on what we just said, it seems to say it seems to require not only reciting it but also understanding it, right? But now we're saying that even if you don't understand Hebrew, you're Yotze. It says, ask the Gemara of Halo Yodamai Kavri, you're not going to know what you're saying. So Midi Dehava Anosh Ami Aretz. So yeah, okay, you're not going to understand what you're saying. But similar to women and Ami Aretz who Bisman Chazal did not understand Hebrew, so just like they could be Yotze with Megillah, they're obligated and Yotze in Megillah even without an understanding. So too, someone doesn't understand Hebrew, they would still be Yotze. Maskim Ravina to Anan Ha'achashterani B'nei HaRamachim Miyadinan. So it says Ravina, I don't understand the question in the first place. What's the problem you don't understand? Nobody understands. There's words in the Megillah that nobody knows what they mean. What does Ha'achashterani B'nei HaRamachim mean? Nobody knows, right? So it can't be that that understanding is an essential element of the mitzvah. Ella mitzvahs kriyo persuminisa, hachana mitzvahs kriyo persuminisa must be that what the reading of Achasra Nibnei Ravatim teaches us that the real mitzvah is Kriya and Persumei Nisa. So to here, right, by someone who reads in Hebrew and doesn't understand it, there is a mitzvah of Kriya, of reading it and Persumei Nisa. Apparently, that all does not exist inherently when reading it in another language. So the bottom line is,
So that's funny. If you read it in Hebrew, you yotze.
Even if you don't understand it, but any other language, correct. If I read it in Portuguese and I have no idea, not that I know how to read it in Portuguese, if I hear it in Portuguese, I'm not yotze, right? But correct. But in Hebrew, even if you don't understand it, inherently you are yotze. Okay. Next case, Kara Sirugin Yotze, says the Mishnah, if you read it in intervals, you are Yotze. Lo havu yod Rabbanan mai Sirugin. So the Rabbanan did not know what this halakha of Sirugin meant until Shamul Amsa de Beirav, the Ka'amr Hule Rabbanan, until they heard the maidservant of Rebbe, that they heard the maidservant of Rebbe saying to Rabbanan, apparently they were coming in a few at a time into the house of Rabbi, and the maidservant kind of lashed out at them. How long are you going to be entering, in Seirugin? Oh, so they deduced from there that Seirugin meant in intervals. Lo my chaluk right? They didn't know what these chaluk lugos were. Shamula Amsal which appears elsewhere in Chazal. Shemula Amsa de Beirav de Amrolei who gathered the Hava Mivader Par Techine, scattering purslins. Not that I know, scattering purslins. Not that I know what that means in English, but that's what the translation is. So on Mosai Ata Mifazer Chaluglugecha. Right. So when until the Amsa de Beirav, the Rebbe saw and said to this person that was scattering his purslins until he said to her, well, until when are you going to do this? So okay, that's how they understood what it meant. They didn't understand the pasuk of Mishnah. What does it mean? Purslins?
Yeah.
Okay. I meant to look it up and I forgot. So thank you. Okay. So apparently he was scattering his type of vegetable. Okay. So they didn't know what this pasuk meant. This phrase meant in the pasuk Mishlei. Shemula Amsa de Rebbe the Havas Amra leHahu Gavra the Havim Hapich bit Maziyeh, until they heard the maidservant of Rebbe say to some Gavra, to some guy who was playing with his hair, Amra le Admasi Atam Salsel bit Sa'arecha. So when are you going to be playing, to be curling your hair? Dr. Yahav, right? Until what does this pasuk mean? Throw on God your Yahav, right? Amar Rav bar Mechana, Zimna Chada Hava Azilna Behadiyahu Taya Vikadarina Tuna. Until says Rav bar Mechana, one time I was walking with an Arab, and I was carrying a heavy load. And he said to me, hey, take your Yahav and throw it on my camel, right? I'm not right, and apparently I've deduced from there that that Yahav means load. Did you ever know this? New meaning of your name. You're right. Yeah.
She said, Bob and Yud, she said, Bob and Yud is the same.
There you go. Okay, beautiful. All right.
I can tell you that.
Lo haviyadi rabbanan my vitata say bimitata hashmei. So they didn't know what this pasuk in Yeshaya vititiya matate hashmei. Okay. It's a good thing you don't have to lean that, right? Okay, right. So they didn't know what that pasuk meant. Shamuel Amsa de Rabbi. All right. Shmuel Amsa de Rabbi Havas Amra lechaverta shakule tatisa vitati bisa. Right. That apparently it means broom. Right. That's until they heard the Amsa de Rabbi who said to her friend, "Take your broom and sweep my house." Okay. And then they understood. Oh, must mean brooms. Okay, good. Tanu Rabbana. Was it on time?
Very high.
Yeah, plenty of time. Hey. All right. Tana Rabbanan. Kara Serugin Yatza. You should know, most of you only sure by not 20 minutes. Tana Rabbanan. Kara Serugin Yatza. Serusin Lo Yatza. Says the Gemara. If you read it Serugin, if you read it, like we said, in intervals, so then you are Yotzei. However, if you read it in out of order, then you are not Yotzei. Rabbi Muna Omer Mishum Rabbi Huda after Serugin im Shahag de Ligmars Kula Chozel Rosh. It says Rabbi. Okay. You could have written the Gemara. Okay, says Rabbi Huda. Right. Not only is right, so fine. So Serugin is Yotzei, Serusin is not. But even by Serugin, if you waited long enough in order to be able to finish the entire Megillah, then you're not Yosef. Then you have to repeat from the beginning. Amar of Yosef halach Nunash. Amar Mishum Rabbi Huda. So Yosef says yes, and such is the halacha. Amar the Abayla of Yosef. Okay, fine, that's the halacha. But what does that mean? Can they ligmar skula mehecha tekai? The seifa or the mehecha tekai? The seifa or the mehecha tekai? Does that mean from where you are currently until the end? If you wait that long, then you have to go back to the beginning. Or does it mean from enough to read the entire thing from the beginning to the end? So it must mean if you wait long enough from the beginning to end. Because otherwise it becomes totally subjective, and every case is going to be different. There's not a standard amount of time that is a hefsek. So it must mean if you waited at any point in the Megillah enough time to finish the entire Megillah from the beginning to the end, then you would not be Yosef. That's go back to the beginning. Amar B'Yirmiyah, our Abba Amar Rab, Allah K'Rabi Muna, Shmuel Amar Ein Allah K'Rabi Muna. Okay, so he quotes, so the B'Yirmiyah Abba quotes that Rav says Allah is like Rabbi Muna and Shmuel's not. However, B'Surah must Haki, B'Pubadisa must Haki. That's how they taught it in Surah. But in Pubadisa they taught as follows: Amar Rav Kahana Amar Rav, Allah K'Rabi Muna, Shmuel Amar Ein Allah K'Rabi Muna. Right. So in Pubadisa they reversed it. That Rav said halacha is like Rabbi Muna, and Shmuel said it's not. Rabbi Bibi Masni Ifcha. Rav Amar Ein halacha Rabbi Muna. Shmuel Amar halacha Rabbi Muna. Right. So Rabbi Bibi says not opposite. That Rav's halacha is like Rabbi Muna, and Shmuel says it's not. So Amar Rav Yosef Nachut the Rav Bibi biyadecha. Go like Rav Bibi, the last shita. That Rav is the one who said halacha is not like Rabbi Muna, and Shmuel says halacha is like Rabbi Muna. Why? Because Shmuel who dechayish leyichidah. Because Shmuel is the one who we know tends to be choshes, tends to be concerned with the das yochad. It's not in a totally different context. Shomeres yavam shekidish achliv es achos yalei shomeres yavam. You have a woman whose husband dies before they have any child. The halacha is the eldest brother. Or a question whether it's the eldest or on everyone, but has to do either yibum or chalitza. So what happens if in the process after that person dies and the woman is now waiting for either yibum or chalitza from one of the brothers? One of the other brothers goes ahead and says, I'm not interested in her, but I'm interested in her sister, and goes ahead and does kiddushin to her sister. So says Mishum Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira, Omru lo hamtein achi yaseh chita gadol maisi. You have to wait until your brother does a maisa, either yibum or chalitza. In other words, apparently, Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira assumes there's what's called a zika, a connection between the shomeres yavam, this woman who lost her husband, and all of the brothers. All the responsibility falls on all of the brothers, and thus no brother can then marry her sister until something else had been done. So, however, Amar Shmuel, and it says Amar Shmuel, apparently the Chachamim disagreed with that, and they said no. Responsibility only fell upon the oldest brother, and therefore every other brother has no connection to this woman and could go ahead and marry her sister. Amar Shmuel, Shmuel comes along and says, yeah, I hold like Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira. So we see that what? That Shmuel is choshish for a das yachid, and therefore it makes sense that he is the one who said that halacha is like Rabbi Muna. Okay. Tana Rabbanan. Hishmit basif sofer osios of sukin the karon hakore kimaturgaman hamatargam yatsa. If the sofer left out of the Megillah a few letters or even psukim, then the one who read it just included it right, understood that was missing and included it, you'd be yotze. So meisvei, how you bought osios mitushtoshos o mikuraos, if you had letters which were wiped out or torn out, imershuman nikar ksherim lav psulam. Right, if you could make out what they are, if there's some level recognizable, then it's kosher, and if not, impossible. So that's a stira. So no, it's a problem if all of it, if the entire thing is written in a smudgy way. But if it's just a portion of it, then it would be okay. If the one reading the Megillah skip one pasuk, so you should not say, "Oh, I'll read the whole thing and then I'll go back and read that pasuk." Rather, you should go back, read that pasuk, and continue from there. This never happened to anyone here, but if someone entered late to shul and found that the tzibur was halfway through the Megillah, don't say, "I'll read half of it with the tzibur, half of it afterwards." Read the entire thing in one shot. Okay, misnamnim yotza v'chulu. So if one is dozing off, then they are yotze. Okay, so class of daf yomi also. Okay, hechidami misnamnim. So what's called misnamnim? Amarav ashi nim velo nim tir velo tir. Right, that dozing off, right, not in your head, but not totally in a slumber. Dekaru le'va'ani velo yada hadure. That velo yada hadure svara. Right, that if you say, Joe, right, then Joe, right, they can respond, right? It's like they flinch and they hear their name, they flinch, they respond, but they can't give any really logical explanation or response. But if they remind them like where they are and what they're talking about, then they will remember. So it's kind of that very low sleep. So in such a case, if you're listening to that, still would be yotze. Says the Mishnah, if one is writing it or giving a drasha or fixing it, if he had kavana, if he recites it out loud and has kavana to be yotze in mitzvah, then he could be yotze in mitzvah. If he dummy, what's the case? Either come a sabbath, because of law, kikivin liba my hubby, I'll pehu. Right? If the case is talking about where he was reciting the pasuk as he writes it, so then he's saying it very nice that he had kavanah. He's saying about that. So maybe it means okay. So he's writing each pasuk and then saying it. That halach is like the one who says that it all still needs to be written out, but you can't read from a partial Megillah. So it can't be that it's just talking about where you wrote one line and then recited it. Right? Even the one who says you don't need to read the whole thing out loud, you still, to be yotze, you still need to have a full Megillah. So, Elamai, what is the case? The case is, I'm writing a Megillah, I have a second Megillah which I'm writing based off of, and I'm reading that Megillah, and then rewriting the second Megillah. So if I have Kavanah while reading out loud those psukim before I write them from the first Megillah, that's the case where I could be yotze. Say this is a proof for also to prove that he says that it's prohibited to write one letter, not minaksav, not without looking, right? Not so you can't write a sefer Torah about play. You need to be basing it off of another Torah. Dilma ishrami lay ishramuye. So no, so Elamai must be that remind me. It must be that Dilma is the ishrami lay ishramuye. Right. Okay, good. Right. So right, exactly. Thank you. Right. Maybe it's not a proof. Maybe it just happens to be that in this case he was reading off another Gemara, another Megillah, but it doesn't mean he has to always have another sefer. So Gufa, Amar Rabbi Rechana, Amar Yochanan, also make the most achas shalom and exam. Okay, so now we're going to go into that discussion a little bit. That it's prohibited to write even one letter with not from another sefer. That he went to Asia to be Ma'aber Hashem to make it a leap year. Below Hayashon Megillah. There's no other Megillah there. The Kara, and he wrote by heart a Megillah, and then he read from it. Amar Rabbi Abba, shiny, Rabbi Meir, did Nikayim Meir Alfabecha Yashir Negdecha So no, the mayor is not a mayor is different because the pasuk in Mishlei says your eyelids are straight before you. In other words, you I'm the Rebbe, hear me, I'm a different kind of a perfect shoot. I can hold it up a gate. I'm a low, evil different Torah. That means the different Torah are clear before you. That you blink your eyelashes and it's no longer there. Talking about Torah. But even though that's true for most people, like Rabbi Meir, he knew Kol Torah Kula, and thus he was able to write about that. Here's the Ashur Gedor Tanana, the Havakas of Svarim Shlomo Nexav. So one time though, here's the founder of Tanana who was doing the same thing. He was writing Svarim not Nexav. Reuya Kol Torah Kula Lekazim Abicha. You are knowledgeable enough that all Torah can be written based off of your mouth without having to look into anything. Elo. But nonetheless, the Chazal say that it's also to do so. It's also to write even one letter now in Exav. So you see what? They were Miyusharim by they were Miyusharim by him. They knew it. And yet, the call never can not over doing this. The Miyusharim that's low. Rabbi Meir Kosa. So, but Rabbi Meir did this. Rabbi Meir, it was Miyusharim, and still did write it. Shasam Kak Shiny. So, no, Rabbi Meir was dealing with the Shasam Kak, and therefore it was okay. But typically, even for someone who it's Miyusharim, that's what's a problem. Abaye Shara the debate bar Chavu Michtav Tefillin Umezuzos Shalom and Exam. Abaye allowed the house of Bar Chavu to write Tefillin and Mezuzos not in Exam. Kiman Ki Tanya like the following Tanya. The Tanya is near me own Yishmer. They know Tefillin Mezuzos Michtav Shalom and Exam. That Tefillin and Mezuzos can be written not in Exam. They ain't shrichos stirtot. They don't need the lines before writing. Part of writing for a Sefer Torah needs to have lines before you write it on. So says Rabbi Yirmiyah, you don't need that for tefillin and mezuzos. The hilchos tefillin ain't shrichos sirtot, mezuzos shrichos sirtot. Id nichtam shalom nexav. Right. So the halacha is when it comes to tefillin and mezuzos, tefillin does not need sirtot, does not need these lines. Mezuzos does, and neither of them need to be written in nexav. My time on Midrash Gerson. Why? Because it's not like a Sefer Torah, Megillah, or Sefer of Tanakh, where you need to copy it, and most people don't know. Most people know the parshios, the short parshios of Tefillin and Mezuzah. Okay, do we want to get to the Mishnah? Or do we want to stop? Go to the Mishnah. I'm good if you good. So we'll stop. Here.
What do you find?